Hi everybody, I am Jan, the chief bastard of Sanuk Games. The reason for my title is our latest game, which is called Bombing Bastards, and the fact that I read Marketing for Dummies and they said that I should identify with my product, so there we go. Now, let me introduce the panelists. There is Mike Tuori from Touchten Games in Indonesia. There is Pattera Apithanakoon from E3 in Thailand. There is Chang from Red Atoms in Beijing. There is Jakob Lykkegaard from Pocket PlayLab in Thailand. Actually, just PlayLab now, because it's too big to fit in a pocket. And Conor Bracken from Andovar in Thailand. I will ask each panelist to introduce themselves, of course, telling in particular for those who publish games, which genre of games do you publish or do, and in which markets? You first, Mike.
Yeah, so I'm Mike Tuori from Touchten Games, based in Jakarta. Our studio was founded in 2009 and had a lot of success early on with premium casual games. And since then it's been transitioning to free-to-play, but we still focus mostly on casual titles. And we actually have very different and specific strategies for when we publish a game globally or when we publish a game in the Indonesian market. So I think I can talk more about that.
Okay, next. Kun Pattera.
Hi, sawadika, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Pattera. I have been CEO of E3 for 10 years, I guess. That's a very long time. So we grow from being an online game publisher covering mainly in Thailand. Our base here is in Thailand. And last year we expanded to Vietnam. And we grow from being a PC client operator and then browser games. And last year we expand to mobile games. So and across like all genre. So casual, hardcore. So altogether we published around like 21 titles so far. I'll be happy to share with you more of the experience on the local Thai later.
Okay, next, Andrew.
Yeah, my name is Andrew Chan. It's very nice to have a chance to come over to Bangkok to have a chance to meet you here. Our company is called Red Atoms, and we are founded in 2009, and I'm one of the founders. In the very beginning, we were like a PC-based, more like SNS game company, and our focus were more to the like Western countries and Japan or Korea. And about like 4 years ago, we switched to mobile gaming. And then as a market, we switched from the overseas to the domestic, which means mainland China. And then right now, our major focus market is mainland China, Korea, and Taiwan. And we have some like publishing experience, such as like Disney or the other company. And it's nice to have a chance to join this panel, and I would like to share more information with you guys. Thank you.
Next, Jakob.
And I'm Jakob. I'm the CEO and also co-founder of Pocket PlayLab, PlayLab as it is now. It's difficult myself. We kind of been on all areas of the publishing. We've been creating our own games, self-publishing. We publish one title through Rovio, Rovio Stars. And we're also coming up with our first title that we're actually publishing from Ranch Run Infinity Levels. Plus we are continuously working on 7 games that we have in-house that we are producing and self-publishing, plus making partnerships with areas that are outside our scope. We mainly focus on casual games on Western markets, but are also expanding here to Southeast Asia, where we're based.
And Conor.
Hi, I'm Conor Bracken. I'm the founder and owner of Andovar. We're not a gaming publisher or developer, so I'm the odd one out here. I'm from Ireland originally, but I've lived in Bangkok for 23 years. So Andovar is a localization company, so we translate the games and we customize the artwork and we do voiceover of characters and we do all aspects of getting a game technically from one locale into another. So our largest office is here in Bangkok, but we're also in Kolkata, India, and Medellin in Colombia, and have a head office in Singapore. So we're not just into gaming, we also do online travel for people like Agoda and Travelocity, even Swati.com, and apps and e-learning. Even Hollywood movies we dub into different languages. So in terms of gaming, gaming is our highest growth area of localization, and initially we were doing west to east games. So for companies like GamesForge, Playdemic, Playdom, we were localizing their games from primarily English or maybe German into globally and into Asia. But in the last year or two, we've started working with XPlay and NetEase, and we're finding that it's perhaps even more interesting and challenging and lucrative to go from China, Japan, and Korea, going from east to west. There are probably greater cultural and technical challenges. So we have experience both ways, and I hope I can share some of that experience today.
Okay, so yeah, first question. I noticed, for example, when you talk about your local market, you talk about Indonesia, you would talk about Thailand. Is there any such thing as a regional Southeast Asian market with consistent mechanisms and trends, or is it really so fragmented that each country must be addressed individually? Who wants to, who has any comments on that? Yeah.
Of course, they are different in many ways, but I think they have more in common than they have different. We heard earlier from Monty about how difficult it was to launch games into China and the amount of cultural issues and the issues with all the different ways to get noticed. Well, Southeast Asia has a number of things in common. Well, first of all, the market sizes for gaming is kind of similar amongst Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam. Also, English language skills are rather poor, I'm afraid to say. So that means you need to go definitely have a localized game, whereas English can help you penetrate. You can penetrate into Germany and into Sweden, etc., quite well with just English. The monetization methods are kind of similar across Southeast Asia. People and the average amount of money that people will spend. And even things like Facebook is dominant across all these countries, so you don't have to worry about Baidu or some funky social media. And you know, for example, in Taiwan, I know you often use TV ads to back up gaming, and you don't really use TV. So we also use Line. Line is very big here in Indonesia, and maybe WeChat. So yeah, there are differences in each market for sure, but there's, if you can kind of think of them and approach them in the same way. There are also markets which there's not a huge amount of strong local players, present company accepted. So it's easier to be a big fish in a small pond, whereas to get noticed in China or in America, you're competing with so many other people. But here, for example, in Thailand, I see many Thai people playing English language games, even though their English skills are quite poor. That means that there's a demand for games that is not being filled. That
actually leads to another question I had. I mean, as a developer myself, I had a recent experience where I have a game that is in English with texts in English and voice acting in English, and its biggest market is Japan. So that obviously is an exception and is contrary to what everybody would tell you about Japan. But yeah, among panelists here, who actually localizes their games for their local markets?
I do.
You do?
Well,
okay.
I kind of agree and disagree with your point. Well, Southeast Asia is a very, very interesting region, right? All the 10 countries combined, you have 600 million people, right? But yet, we look like the amount of people is really huge. But actually, if you look into each country, everyone has a very unique culture. For example, like Thailand, we're the only 70 million people on earth that actually speak Thai. And Malaysian also, and although they speak like English and Chinese, but then again, their culture is also very different. So I agree in a sense that gaming is a universal language, right? Anybody can figure out how to actually play a game. But actually, for you to win the royalties of the gamer, you actually need to get to know the local. Like what kind of food you like, what kind of TV advertising that really attracted you, or something like that. These are the unique point of each countries, in which I think localization in some sense is really a must or necessary. But it also depending on you as well, like what kind of game that you have, or what kind of content that you have. If it is very simple for anybody to understand it, it's fine. You can do like, you don't need anything to do with localization at all. But if, for example, we're talking about games that it's a little mid-core to hardcore, of course, for you to get to know your local gamer, in the end, they're your customer. So I would really want to speak the same language with them, right? That's
okay.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I think that for us, we've had some success just taking the same strategy for every country. And I think, yeah, like you said, hardcore games are a bit different. But for casual games, we put an emphasis on like as little text as possible and try to communicate everything through simple graphics and things like that. And that kind of reduces a lot of the need for localization, because markets like Indonesia, everybody knows what the start button is, what the menu button is, things like that. So we just try to keep the text minimal and simple mechanics, and that works. But yeah, there definitely is, like, getting into the market is one thing, and I think you can do that without too much localization. But reaching the top and really being successful, I think, does take specific considerations, especially on key markets like Thailand, for instance. We would consider using a publisher here because it's a very good market to be in. And Vietnam, is also similar. It's very fragmented in distribution. You won't get a high number of downloads from the Google Play. You have to use third-party app stores and payment. So it's much harder to just get into that market on its own. But other markets like Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, I think you can get in and distribute and without much need for localization or third-party help.
For our experience, actually we have one Me Too hardcore game. It's called Three Kingdoms now. It's the first successful car battle game in China. And that game has already released in China for about 3 years now. And we are still in the iOS top grossing for 50. And in the very beginning, we were in the top one for continuous 3 to 4 months. And that game not only in China but also in Taiwan and Korea quite successful. We think and I believe the most important thing is about your gameplay, because the gameplay is successful gameplay is a lot of fun. That is universal. So first of all, that is fundamental. Second of all, about localization, for our experience is we need to do that, but it depends on your resource and how much your time or resource you can focus on. But at least for each event or each local stuff, it actually is quite different. Even though a China or Taiwan, similar language, but in terms of national holidays, such kind of stuff is always different. So how they celebrate or their popular stuff is kind of different. So you got to involve in that and do such kind of stuff into your game and into your events, so that your players or your user will feel more closer to you, and that's how we success. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just there's one common misunderstanding that I kind of wanted to kill. as Andrew pointed out, it's the gameplay itself that is important, and it's universal and work in every country. If you have a crappy game, localizing it into Thai will not make a success in Thailand. I meet a lot of indie developers that are like, yeah, it's because we're not supporting the local payment, it's because we're not in the local language, that's why the game is not performing. That's not the case. You can put in a game to a country, if it's performing in English, you go in and you localize it, but you do it based on the numbers. You will lower your CPI, you will higher your retention. Everything, it's a conversion rate. People will like your game better, they will understand it, you will have an earlier, easier adoption. But you can't just take a game and put it into Thai and hope that it will be a success in Thailand.
Yeah, it's quite obvious indeed that localization will not turn a bad game into a good game. That said, beyond just the localization of text, did any of you have a business case in which they had to localize more than the text, like change the gameplay or the mechanics of monetization, besides just the API and the provider, in order to fit the cultural and taste requirement of a local market?
I would add the only point that we really had, we tried to take text out, but if you try to localize for Korea Kakao Talk, be prepared to have to add a lot of extra features that they feel is very important. It might not be that you have to localize because of the local market, but you have to localize because Kakao thinks that these features works in all games on that. So if you want to go with them, be prepared to have a long list of extra added daily retention features and everything else that you should add on top.
And I think like when you look at some of these like big markets like US, China, Korea, Japan, the users have very specific motivations and needs that the features must match. Like Japan is all about the gacha system. China is all about the VIP kind of package and status. I think Indonesia is quite fortunate. It kind of sits, nicely in the middle between, the East and West. Like the Japanese style games are all really successful and everyone understands them. Same with the American games when they come. They're also, very easily adopted. So I don't think that's a big issue. Personally, Touchten, we haven't changed any of our games or like localized any of the features for different markets. But we do make games specifically for Indonesia and particularly like very, very casual games and try to bring in, like we made a crossword puzzle game that's entirely in Indonesian language that is much more than just, localization or translation. Or other games using IPs from Indonesia that we don't plan to bring those games outside of Indonesia at all.
Okay.
We sometimes see with games coming from China that we have to change the artwork because the characters either infringe a copyright or they have some sort of racial stereotype or something that's going to be a little bit offensive in America. So quite often we see that characters have to be redrawn if they're coming, especially from China, not so much from Japan.
And I can share one experience. We used to help Disney US to port again to Disney Japan. And that is about the characters about Mickey Mouse. And we helped them to actually have a Mickey to wear the Japanese clothes and eat like a sushi. So such kind of stuff actually for Japanese user, they buy it because they think it's very close to their culture and they understand it. So even for like a Mickey Mouse, they wear kimono or eat sushi. That's yeah.
So yeah, we were saying that indeed a bad game in one place will probably be a bad game in another place anyway. But conversely, if you have a game that works well in your local market, can you consider that your local market is a good test market for consumer response and metrics so that you can then upscale and extrapolate to the global market?
Like a big thing that we do is doing soft launches in Thailand, because in Thailand we can get a lot of users in rather cheaply to test the game out, and we can see that the way that they play through the levels are very similar to the way that they play in US. So for us, we use it a lot for the balancing part of the game, that We can see the users coming in now. Plus, Thai users are really great at giving feedback about the game and how they like to play it, what they think is cute, what they think is ugly. They're very honest players. So it's really a good market for us to test it out, both for the balancing, but also to figure out if we screw up somewhere. Not so much for the monetization. That will hopefully come.
Yeah, we don't test so much in Indonesia. I think a lot of it is to do with our reputation. I think we're a well-known studio, and Indonesians are a bit nationalistic. So once we're already a studio that has had success international, people are a little bit positively biased. So I think it would be harder to get the positive response because people are just so happy to see a successful Indonesian developer. Yeah.
I'd like to add in terms of as a publisher point of view. So we're not really a developer, although we own two gaming studio here in Thailand. But Thai people, Thai gamer, this actually has a very unique way of playing game. We are like 65 million people. And the gamers here in Thailand are, if you're talking about a hardcore player, they're really, really hardcore. If you compare with China, or you get a bunch of sample size, but then on average, like a middle quality games from China, actually, you'll get a different result in China. And Thai people are really specific of what they actually want. And they're only going to play a content that's really, really good. I'm talking about the mid-core to hardcore player, though. In terms of casual, like the experience that Jacob's share, I think I totally agree with you, that if I were, the developer, I would probably use Thailand as an example to go global. But but for the hardcore player, like Thai people, only the good game, the good monetization, good gacha system, good VIP system is really driven them.
Okay.
For us, because we are for our game, actually, overall game will be released in mainland China first. So we use mainland China as because we put the major resource in mainland China. And as I mentioned, a successful game is universal. So, and from our experience, whatever actually it would be successful in mainland China, actually when we translate or we transfer into Korea or a Taiwanese market, actually it's always the same in terms of pay rate, in terms of retention, in terms of such kind of numbers. Actually, it's relevant. So we always do it in mainland China first.
Okay. Next question. So you may use your local market as a test market, but when it comes to extrapolating and going global, you have two options. Either you do it by yourself or you find partners. In fact, is it more reasonable when you are a studio to try and go global by yourself and shortcut the publishers, or is there some benefit in partnering with publishers in different regions?
I think it depends on many resources. If you are a developer, a small developer, right, you would rather focus on developing a very, very good content and leave the marketing part and marketing budget and marketing strategy to a local partner, whoever you wanted to work with. But if you are a bigger company and you have a dedicated resources, and depending on your game too, if you're holding a casual game, then it might be worth it for you to explore each market. But I would also like to add also that each country has very different marketing structure. For example, Thailand, if you're talking about mobile games, so there's only two official app store, which is Google and Apple, right? But in Vietnam, it's very different. You have so many app stores all at one time. In Indonesia, I'm not so sure. So this kind of thing it's for me, I think you would spend a lot of time trying to figure it out where things are in a very foreign country. Whereas if you work with local partner, it would be easier for you to navigate which is the best way to acquire your customer, which is the best way to communicate with your customer, to encourage them to pay for your game. And on the other hand, I know that we have Tapjoys and App Flyers and a lot of advertising network here, but one of the best, the advantage that working with local partner is the ability for you to actually figure it out how to acquire users, not to use a very traditional ad service way, but on a more creative way. Like you can be on ground, you can be creating a very catchy YouTube video, or you can actually help moderate help facilitate the Facebook closed group or something like that. These are the things that a foreigner cannot really provide. You have to be very local to get to know like who your gamers are. How do you stimulate them? How do you encourage them to actually pay for your game? So that's the point I like to share.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think a lot of it, traditionally, I mean, Touchten has always done just self-publishing, and I think it comes from, starting very early on in the, when the, first iPhone, before it was so expensive, and so you could just put an app on the App Store and get downloads, which is not possible today, and the costs are so high. So now we're reevaluating a bit of our publishing strategy. So it all depends on the market we're looking at and kind of the angle we're trying to take there. So either in a market where it's very high cost to acquire a user, maybe we would use a publisher if they will take care of the marketing. Or again, yeah, if the payment is an issue or distribution is an issue, like Vietnam or Thailand, I believe you want the local payment options, we would consider a publisher. But in other markets where we feel like the monetization is probably low and the time it would take to seek out a publisher would be very costly to us, then we'll just leave it. So it's kind of case by case. Certainly we would only consider it in more like key markets that we're really trying to target. So like Japan, US, Thailand, Vietnam, Hong Kong, Taiwan, things like that.
I would just say, like, if you go into a country and Facebook is not the one with the most traffic, or you have the provider that in that country have the most traffic, then you can actually go in and do the self-publishing part. If Facebook is the provider in the country with the most traffic, you can buy it, you can use all the ads and everything on. If you go into Korea, Kakao have more. If you go into Japan, Line have more. So yes, then you can go in and have that local partnership structure for. But if you can buy the traffic using channels, just like the locals can, then self-publish, or at least try to it. Now I'm also on the publishing side, so if you ask me a year ago, I would have said self-publish at any time, because the market is undervalued. You could buy ads super cheap and people actually convert in your game and they will pay you a lot. Now the CPI prices over the last year for what you're actually paying for one install, or the advertising is getting so much more expensive that you also have to now invest into infrastructure that will make sure that you find the smartest ads and the cheapest ads around to buy to convert into the game. So if you don't have that infrastructure, you can't just shop around anymore and buy traffic from all sources and it will go up, because the margins are getting smaller. So sometimes you also need to partner up if you don't have anyone in the marketing team to scale that side.
Yeah, one quick thing I'll just add that I've found with publishing is that managing the relationships are quite difficult, and you have to make sure the incentives are aligned with you and with the publisher. Because a lot of times, like China, we use a publisher, but a lot of times, the publisher will just release the game, send us an invoice, every month, and we have no idea what they're doing with the game, or we have no idea what they're doing with user acquisition or events, things like that. So I think it takes a lot of work, especially if you have like multiple publishing deals, to kind of manage those relationships and make sure that they're keeping up their end of the bargain, and and things are going well and like that. So also something to consider.
Yeah, one thing I want to share the experience is about like China. So like a previous speaker, they mentioned like China, because Google Play is not big at all in the China market. So there are like a couple app stores there, such as like a 360 or like a Baidu or like etc. So getting those kind of business development actually is extremely tough, even for the local like developer. So for the like a foreigner like a developer, you guys probably when you enter, you will find a local like a publisher to help you to deal with those kind of stuff, including the translation or all kind of stuff. And but one thing you got to know that is most of the like leading publisher, because they have a limited resource or like a marketing budget, so they only will test you in the very like a couple of weeks, and if your number is not that good, they would just pull out your game and then like try to put a resource into the other games. So and you probably like prepare for the game or like develop for the game for 6 months or 9 months for at least like 30 people or something. But once your number are not that good, they would just like you'll die. You just like just kill your game. So that is one thing about like how the differences between the like publisher and you publish your games, because you focus on your game. So it's your kids. So no matter your kid is good or not, you'll try your best to do something. That's our experience actually.
Okay. Yeah, so it appears indeed that in some countries, like specifically China, obviously, and also Vietnam, well, the distribution channels are not the same as in other countries. They are country-specific and they are harder to access. So that's obviously intuitively where it would make sense to go with a local publisher, and also when not the distribution channels, but the user acquisition channels are also hard to access because they are, or at least they are too different from the rest of the world. That's when it makes sense to go with a publisher. But in other countries where basically when it's Google Play, when it's Facebook ads, it seems that in most cases that's where you can give a shot at going yourself. If you are to go with a publisher, how would you choose your partner, and what are the must-have conditions that you expect in a deal? Who wants to comment on that?
We used to choose Tencent as our like publisher for Android in China. And why we choose Tencent? Because of course they are one of the leading company in not only China but of the world nowadays. And so the first is for us is about trust. So because at the end you got to be win-win, because if it's not win-win, it doesn't mean anything. So it's not like a one-time deal. You want to have a relationship for a long time. So for us, first it's about trust. So are they going to put a lot of resource into your game, and are they going to focusing on your game as their kid, as I mentioned. So that's extremely important, and I want to show the experience with you guys. The second is about the records. Do they have any experience, and do they have any successful games they release in the local market? Because a lot of people, they can say very beautiful, but doesn't mean they can make it or they can do it. So you got to be careful, I mean, in certain markets. So that is about our experience.
I would just say, make sure there's a way out. If you don't have a way out and they are not incentivized to actually continue building the game and promoting it, then it really sucks. So, but if there is a way out, if the game is launched by the publisher and they're not performing and you can't get the game back, that's when you start to lose money. If you pick, let's say, the wrong publisher, they launch it, it doesn't work, you need to wait 2 years before you can get it back. They will not just shelf the product and not do anything about it because they're not incentivized to pull it. The way we structure the deal in that is also that if it doesn't work, you get the game back right away. I don't care if I invested a few $1 million into the game. If it's not working, it's not working, and we don't want to put more resources into it. You will get it back. You will get everything for free that is in the game and developed. You can get all the tips you want, but we also don't want to have games in the portfolio that is not performing. Then it's much better to give it back to the developer so they can run around with it and actually make success and get it around. Because you pick a publisher based on them performing better than what you would yourself, and if they don't, find a way out or find a way you can buy yourself a way out.
Well, I totally agree. I also like to add, like, by being well, anybody who wants to choose any partner, right? So it's very important for you to get your communication straight. Like you really need to tell the publisher, hey, this is your KPI for the game. This is what you want. This is the picture that you're seeing in the market. And then the publisher should be able to share you back, like, is your picture that you are drawing in your mind is close to reality or not, right? And if it's not, then this is a step what you should do. And if it is, then hey, we're good to go. And then second thing is I like the term that's gaming. It's just more like your child, right? It's you're actually creating a boy or a child, and then you're actually handing him over to someone who's going to help you grow this child, right? So you really need a company that is really dedicated and really focused on your child, right? They have to really think about every possible way how to raise your child to the perfect, picture that you have in your mind. And then at the same time, you also need to work with a partner who is very trustworthy, very transparent, mean that all of the money coming in, coming out, it has to be, recheckable. Like I think this is the point that you should be really focusing on. And I totally agree. Even though I'm a publisher, I like to make a deal where it's a win-win situation, whereas the developer also give us a very clear picture, clear KPI. Hey, I want this. Can you really do this? And then we exchange the idea. Oh, if you want to make this happen, this is the amount of work that you need to be putting in. This is the amount of money that you'll be putting in. And then if we can help you facilitate all of those as mentioned or not. So it's better for you to make it clear cut with whoever your local partner is going to be, and definitely finding way out. It's leave some door open. It's good too, because in the end, if the game does not really make any money, it's not really worth it for the game to just sit on shelf and not being able to make any other money out of it. It's just a waste of time and resources in the end. Yeah.
I think that it's key, like we've been talking about, it's key to realize that it's not a necessity to go with a publisher. I think in the past, it's like developers needed those kind of relationships, but now it's an option. So the key thing is having the plan first. And for us, it's like looking at our capabilities. What can we do ourselves, and what do we look for someone else? Whether it's the market access, whether it's maybe we need help running localized live events or customer service in markets because we don't have the staff to be running 24-hour global customer service. Things like that. But knowing before the deal what kind of value we're looking for the publisher to add, and then finding the publishers that fit what we need is the most important. Like we just published a game with 9gag.com, and for us, it was easy because there's like tons of free users that they have access to. So, the partnership worked out great for us. But knowing beforehand, rather than just talking to, publishers will contact us all the time, and it's like they say, oh well, this is what we do, this is what we don't do, or like these are all. They don't say this is what we don't do. Say these are all the things we can do for you. And then it's like, how do you evaluate them? Unless you've evaluated yourself and you know what you can do and what you can't do. And so we look for publishers that, can make up for some of our weaknesses in the studio and things that we can't do ourselves.
Okay. The summary of this is that you must look for a publisher who has had success cases, who is willing to share figures about their success cases, who is willing to offer you a way out. Still, I can think of at least one publisher whose name shall be withheld, but there's many in fact, who will give you all of that, like, okay, here are our success cases, here are the figures of our success cases, you get a way out. But what they do is that they take a lot of games under their belt, many more actually than what they could concentrate on, and they see very early on when putting all games to the stores, which ones have a chance and which ones don't, and they will concentrate only on those best performers. And obviously you do have the way out, but you will have wasted time and opportunity by trying things with that publisher, when some tend to feel like the publisher just throws the games on the store and sees what works, which is what you could do by yourself, right? Yeah, so yeah, some would say that a good way to filter out those publishers would be to say, hey, you want my game, commit to an advance against royalties. Is that any of your opinion?
The thing is that I don't think you make a game based on the advance on the royalties that you're gonna, like, you're forming a partnership with the publishers because you're expecting to have a great outcome coming out after. They will be able to give you an advance, and they will have to lose a little bit more money on that, but it's still just make sure you have a way out. And also, don't be afraid of launching your app in a local market, testing it out. There's some publishers that is like, oh, you already launched it, well then we can't work together. They should always be able to go in and actually take the game, even if you launch it in a few test countries, take it out and relaunch it again, put it on other markets, because if they are only living by the effect of putting a new game online and see if it works, then yeah, you could do it yourself, as you said. Right. But they should be able to push a game up, even if it's on the store, even if it's in specific countries.
Yeah, that's actually also a very good point. Does it make sense to launch locally by yourself in order to have the figures and the business case that will put you in a stronger position to bargain when shopping for a publisher?
Yeah, the other thing is you got to know why you need a publisher. Yeah. So for us, the most important thing is about the user acquisition. So, and translation and customer support, and probably the IDC or something, I mean the server. So, and other than that, pretty much a lot of stuff you need to do it by yourself. So at the end, if you can do it, why not? If you cannot, try to find a good publisher for you.
And also, as you said, please build the case for yourself of giving the right numbers. It's even if we get games in, or I get games into myself personally, I want them to get in the analytics, launch it on a test market. I'll even throw users through it to see how it performs, because I don't want to make a deal with a game that I know will not make sense, even if it put the developer in a better position to negotiate with myself. I'm looking for the right game, so if you have the right data or anything to back it up, then you will have a lot easier to make a deal, to find a publisher, and get it out.
Okay. Yeah, I have one last question, in fact. So, yeah, we can see that in many countries, maybe except for China, most top games are the same. Like Clash of Clans is a worldwide top. Candy Crush has been a worldwide top. So, is there some interest in launching a game worldwide at the same time in order to benefit from to benefit from the word of mouth on a worldwide basis, and from the press on a worldwide basis, which then would complexify the idea of shopping for different publishers in different markets?
I would say that the global games, the ranking that we all have seen it was actually, especially in Thailand, it has happened the end of 2013, right? And you got to remember that the market environment at that time was very, very different compared to today. So I think there is no specific formula, whether you want to go global first and then local, or you want to go local first and then globalize it later. I'd like to give you an example of Clash of Clans, right? So they are very big, very successful. I don't know if they have any representative here, but anyway, I'll share the case that I heard over in Korea. So a few months ago, then they decided to actually target in Korea, as they think that it's really one of the largest mobile game market in the world, right? So by launching global already, they wanted to expand. They wanted to getting closer to a local gamer. So they do the advertising, targeting like a Korean gamer, and it's actually very, very successful. Like I was told that, the number I heard was, how many % increases in terms of revenue. And then they kind of figured out that being a global player, maybe it's time for you to really go local, right? So that's the case as well. But unless you have that much amount of money, right? If you are a developer who's really, really not have a lot of money like that, then you might want to consider, being successful in one local country. And then later on, when you have enough of the amount of investment or the money for you to actually, power up to be a global player, then this could be your case too. So it's really depend on your resources on hand that you have and the end result of what is it that you're actually seeing and what is it that you're actually targeting.
Okay.
I would also say it only depends on the game. If you're making a Flappy Bird game, you need to go worldwide from day one because there's so much hype about it. You're building it up. If you're like super indie developer that have a lot of hype throughout the world, yes, go all in, release worldwide from day one. If you're building a Candy Crush or Clash of Clans or super localized, do one country at a time, and then when you know you have a good base, you can go worldwide. But if you live off the hype of the of the Flappy Bird, then you can go worldwide, nothing else.
Well, we can see from other markets in software and apps that there's a definite gain to be made by simultaneously shipping SimShip, but it is very difficult and expensive. If it's a complex game, you'll have to be translating while you're still developing the game, which adds a new layer of complexity. So the companies that attempt this are companies with deep pockets and know that, have a high degree of confidence that their games are going to be successful globally, and that's the model from other types of software. But yeah, other than the simple Flappy Bird stuff, which doesn't have a lot of complexity to do it, the way that the gaming market generally is you don't know if you're going to be a hit. So why would you take that extra risk on? So given the percentage of hits is quite low, unless you're a very big player with very deep pockets or a specific genre, you need to prove yourself in one market first.
Yeah. So for Touchten, our strategy is very different, actually, how we approach Indonesia and how we approach the global market. So we build these like larger scale, free-to-play, kind of casual to mid-core titles that are for the global market. And we just launched them globally. And they will get downloads in Indonesia, which is great. But because the conversion and payment is so low, we don't really think like, oh, well, launch global in order to get downloads in Indonesia because, the players just won't convert. It's just not a big revenue market for us. So in Indonesia, we're building an online to offline platform, which can reward users for playing the games with real goods from local brands and things like that. And so for that platform, we build very specific casual games, really quick, like 1 month. And the idea is we just launch them, get users, cross-promote between a bunch of titles in order to get users to use the platform. So it's very different because we're trying to. Indonesia is an important market for us, but with a longer horizon. So we know that the market is growing, it's developing, the payment will come, but it's not there yet. So we're just trying to establish ourselves so that when it is ready, we will be there, as a strong player and as kind of an entry point for other developers who want to enter. But the global market is more established, so we release our free-to-play kind of titles in more established markets with, to try and earn revenue today to support the studio.
Okay. Anything? Yeah.
I want to add one more thing for us, because the most successful game is the genre is like Three Kingdoms, and that is quite successful. I mean, the storyline is quite popular among Asia countries, but for the Western country, nobody knows about that. So we use the same engine and change to the other story, the Western story. But however, because at the end is the game engine part is about a car battle, and of course there are a few Japanese game are quite successful. Were quite successful in the U.S. market, but that game actually, when we translate into the we reskin it into the Western version, actually was not that quite kind of successful. So at the end, we think the gameplay is the most important stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, do we have time for Q&A? No, okay. Okay, no problem. Well, thank you very much.